I'm just making sure that Glenda and Derek aren't coming to my meeting.
No, they shouldn't be.
They're coming, they're here,
They
okay.
should be here.
Yeah, let's do it. We got quorum, right?
We got quorum.
Okay, so now, good evening, everyone. I'm going to call the Committee on Audit and Compliance to order. We'll be taking up the following items for approval. Action item 1A is the approval of the minutes of the March 6, 2023 meeting. I move for the approval of action item 1A. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Wait, that was a hello, Chancellor, right? Not opposing and objecting.
I don't vote.
I know.
Yeah, I know, yeah, thank you.
But, you know, public objection, okay. So, thank you, that item is approved unanimously. I would now like to address section 2, the policy calendar. Policy item 1B1 is a resolution to approve the fiscal year 2023 external audit plan. This resolution requests the Audit and Compliance Committee to approve the university's external audit firm, Grant Thornton's annual audit plan, which includes the scope, approach, and timing of their financial statement and federal audits. I will ask Interim Vice Chancellor Christina Chiappa to provide some background on the topic prior to turning the floor over to Claire Eston, partner at Grant Thornton LLP. Vice Chancellor?
Thank you, Chair Kim. So just briefly, our external auditors, represented here by Claire Eston, is going to give just a brief presentation on their plan for how they're going to conduct the audit, the timing and the scope for the next fiscal year. So just keep it brief. I'm going to just turn it over to Claire and her team.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. It's great to see you all here. I have with me two of my colleagues, Osama Tariq and David Bronfman, who will be assisting with the audit this year. And David and Osama have been helping me for several years now, so they're familiar with the organization. As stated, our intention today is to present the plan for the FY23 audit. And at a high level, I would say that the plan is fairly similar to what it's been in the past in terms of the areas of focus that we'll be spending time on and the timetable, but we'll just go through it. We're not planning on going line by line. The materials were provided in advance, and we just welcome any questions that the committee members have as we go through it. So I'll actually have Osama talk a little bit about the timetable.
Hi, everyone. As you can see, we have the audit timeline and scope on the slide. As Claire mentioned, there's not any significant changes in this timeline, but we have already started discussions with management to make sure that we identify any key areas that we can get a jump start on and test during interim, just so we can execute on this timeline.
And I know Christina and Sarah are going to talk a little bit more about the discipline of adhering to this timeline and what management has put into place to ensure that they're in a good spot and it's not just management, it's us as well. So making sure that we're all in a good spot for the meeting coming up in October to be able to sign off on the financials shortly after that. So that is everybody's goal and focus. And then David, if you can just quickly touch on the significant risks in other areas of focus.
Sure, thanks, Claire. So these next few slides are just basically the audit procedures that we're planning to perform for the fiscal 2023 audit. There's no real significant changes like tuition, revenue, investments, and so on. The main item I wanted to cover, though, is GASB 96, the subscription-based IT arrangements. Essentially, this is just a new GASB standard. It's similar to GASB 87 in the sense that it is essentially going to be recording the right of use for the subscription-based IT arrangements on the balance sheet, along with the corresponding liability discounted at present value. Essentially, management's already been working with us to make sure this standard is being implemented properly, and we are planning to do work surrounding this during interim testing to make sure that management over at CUNY is properly recording the subscription-based IT arrangements on the balance sheet. That's essentially probably the biggest change compared to like prior year. I mean, like the whole process is very similar to the GASB 87 for leases. And that was really the main item I wanted to cover regarding significant risks and other areas of focus. And I'll hand it off to Claire.
Thank you, David. And I will say I'm having a hard time advancing the slides. I'm not sure if I'm
Should we-
close enough or
if
not,
you-
but.
You might want to get
Yeah.
closer, sorry, or they can
Want me
move
to-
the laptop to you.
Oh, here we go. It just, so here, I'll just stay there for a second. So that was the plan for the financial statement audit, and now just transitioning over to the audit of your federal awards, your uniform guidance audit. This has been an interesting experience over the last few years, to say the least, in terms of not just all of the federal money that you've received, which is significant, but trying to figure out what actually needs to be audited, how it needs to be audited, when it needs to be audited, et cetera. There is some formulaic determination of what needs to be audited, but there is also judgment, and there's guidance that comes from the federal government to us as your external auditors about what they want us to audit. So we have to factor all of that in when we're doing our planning. And at this point, as you can see from the slide, for fiscal '23, we expect to audit the Student Financial Aid Program, which hasn't been audited since 2020. So there's going to be some muscle memory here, I think. But that's because we've been auditing HERF for the past couple of years. At this point, it is still, you can see in the second line where it says HERF 123, that there is an asterisk saying it will only be audited as a second major program if the Department of Education tells us that it's a higher risk program and therefore they require that we audit it. We don't have that communication. This is not unique to CUNY. This is across every higher education that receives federal funding. So everybody is essentially waiting for this communication. Last I heard is it's coming in May. And last I heard also that it's highly likely that the Department of Ed will classify HERF as a higher risk program, so we will have to audit it. I think we've tentatively talked to management about that scenario because obviously that's the most challenging scenario. And we want to be prepared for it, but it is still to be determined. But we're sort of tentatively planning for that situation. And once we have a better sense from the federal government, we will move accordingly. So I think, oh, yes, please.
Can your audit build on the fact that you've been auditing it, so that you're auditing sort of the tail end of the HERF 123?
Yes, absolutely. We would only be looking at the final spend that was incurred in fiscal '23. And our experience having audited 2 years in a row is very helpful in terms of the level of preparation that we have and what management knows to expect from us in that audit. Again, the government every year comes out with new audit requirements, so they could change what they need us to look at. That's part of what their communication will be in May. Usually it's very similar, but they like to change things up on us, so. So that concludes the, I'll say, formal remarks around our audit plan. I think we've covered everything. Any other questions from the committee on our plan? Is there anything that you feel, in addition to what we just articulated, we should be spending additional time on in areas of focus, et cetera, in the audit process, so the financial statement audit process?
Anyone have any questions? So none, I think we're good. All right, let me move for the approval of policy item 1B1 then. Do I have a second? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, the item is approved unanimously. I will move to the information items with no more policy items on the calendar. We'll be discussing two information items. Item 2A is a presentation of an update of the fiscal year 2023 audit timetable. I will now call on University Executive Chancellor Sarah Montero for a brief presentation.
Thank you. This evening, I wanted to give the committee members a brief update on the FY23 financial close preparation activities since we last met in March. So our progress to date, my team and I have been working on the following through March 31st. We conducted a mid-year close with colleges, the detailed results of which were included, well, high-level results in a little bit more detail, were included as an information item. We also have met with Grant Thornton on the FY23 results so far, so that they may plan for the FY23 audit, which they just presented. We've been preparing to implement the two new GASB standards, GASB 96 and GASB 94, and in doing so, we have trained colleges on what these standards mean. We are actively working on configuration edits to CUNY First so that we can accommodate the new accounting. We're planning for testing and training efforts for the colleges once that configuration is in place. And we've requested data from colleges in terms of in-scope contracts related to these two standards. And we have also been addressing the finding from the FY22 audit around GASB 87, which was the leasing standard. So we've revisited responsible users for that accounting over those contracts. And we're winding down the review of the edits we received from each college around those permissions. And we're planning for a retraining effort, which will happen in the last quarter. I also wanted to update the committee on some other activities that were going on in my office related to financial reporting. The first of which is we finalized the FY22 uniform guidance audit and the related filings. So everybody at the committee approved the draft financial statements at the last meeting, and from there we have a couple things that we work on with Grant Thornton or internally to file as a result of getting the final audited financial statements. We've completed that. We are right now working on the federal 990T with Grant Thornton as our tax preparers. The 990T is a federal return the university is required to file for what the IRS calls unrelated business income. So that for CUNY really means like our rentals at the colleges and things of this nature. We've submitted reports to the bond rating agencies, most notably Moody's and Standard & Poor. And they've issued their findings on updated financial information. And we prepared and reported on the FY22 financial data to IPEDS. IPEDS is the Integrated Post-Secondary Education Data System. It's an annual activity conducted by the U.S. Department of Education. It's required by all colleges and universities participating in federal aid programs. And it includes financial information, which my team helps facilitate, as well as other academic information, such as enrollment, program completion, graduation rates, etc. And it's done so that the U.S. Department of Ed can analyze trends and make data available to parents and students. And the last piece that I wanted to cover was what was on the horizon for us in the fourth quarter of FY23, headed into the end of our fiscal year end. So over the next few months, we are going to file the 990T, which is due on May 15th. We're going to implement the two GASBs that were mentioned. We are going to continue to plan and fine-tune that plan with Grant Thornton. And we are going to complete the corrective action plan related to our FY22 significant deficiency with active participation from the colleges within CUNY. We also plan to conduct internal year-end training. So that's something that we lead, as an effort that we lead. There's 4 to 5 trainings scheduled for mid-May on various topics for the colleges to be prepared for what updates and what are the expectations as we end June 30th and how we're going to close up and gather information from them for the audit and for the close. We're going to continue to communicate the critical dates with colleges on a biweekly basis through June 30th. And we are going to fill our remaining vacancies that we have within the controller's office. And that's all I wanted to cover today. Does anybody have any questions?
Anybody have any questions? Yes?
Just looking at a couple of the slides having to do with deadlines for everybody, and then talking about, you know, working with the colleges that may not be up to date on things. In the last year, there was some turbulence about getting the material to the accountants and getting the materials done, and the problem of whether there was sufficient staff to do it, and then the, you know, anyway, is it fair to say that that problem is addressed for this year?
Do you want me to start?
Go ahead.
No.
Yeah.
So I think I would say it's not fully addressed, right? So we had the mid-year activities. We did have some exceptions. If you saw that other information item, you'll see that we had some exceptions. So we have enhanced our communication. So we're not only are we following up bi-weekly, but then we're also giving updates of what's coming up the next week. We have concerns on about 5 colleges, and we're going to be having meetings. Hector is going to join us with a meeting with the college president, the vice president, and those are getting scheduled right now. So we're planning to have some communications with those campuses to make sure they're ready for the year ends.
And with regard to the staff?
Our staffing? Yeah, so around, at this point, last time we spoke in October, so it wasn't last time, we had 10 vacancies. We have 4 at this point. And even with the 4, we actually have some long-term temps in those positions. So we feel pretty comfortable that we're staffed appropriately from our ends for this year ends.
Good.
And how does Grant Thornton feel about the timeline that was presented in terms of addressing what Professor Benton just raised?
I feel great about it. It's a matter of just keeping the discipline to key milestones. Yeah. I think, to me, that's the whole meat of it.
And I think this is something that we did discuss as well, because as Professor Benton talked about, in October of last year, there was major concern that there was a culture of just letting deadlines pass, and people recognize that CUNY is 25 institutions in addition to all the other foundations and other entities that need to all give us numbers to Central so that you can then pass on to Grant Thornton. And any delay in that process is a domino effect. And then at the end, you're putting all the pressure on our auditors, external auditors, to try to bring that all together. And so we made it a point to ask you to address that. And so I just want to commend them, at least to this point, for coming up with a very clear timeline, addressing the vacancy issue, which is a national labor shortage issue that everyone is facing, but to get that down from 10 to 4 and then having that long-term temps in place, I think really goes a long way in addressing what we had discussed. And to Claire's point, the instituting, having Hector as the COO get involved in these conversations this early on, which has never happened, and doing it on a bi-weekly basis, and going straight to the head, the president and everybody else who needs to be involved in this, to understand just how important this is for us as an institution to be able to come up with the proper audit procedures going forward. And I offered the entire committee, but myself in particular, to also attend these meetings if we need to emphasize how important this is to get the systemic part of it changed, the culture changed here now, and that this will be something that'll benefit the university for many, many years to come. So again, I just want to commend the staff based on what they've done thus far. We appreciate your help in working with them to come up with this really tight timeline. But again, it's about execution, follow-up, and I'm happy to also join you in any of these calls to make that a real emphasis for the colleges. So thank you so much for that. All right. Anybody else have any other questions, comments? Okay. So to discuss the next information item on today's agenda, we will go into executive session in accordance with sections 105C and 105F of the New York State Open Meetings Law. I make a motion to move into executive session. Do I have a second? Thank you. We are now in executive session.